The anime begins by showing the daily routine of Tomoyo Kanzaki. As she makes her way to the literature club room after school, she runs into her friend Hatoko Kushikawa. Hatoko, however, has a class task to complete and asks Tomoyo to go ahead without her. Tomoyo enters the literature club room to find one of its members, Jurayando, already inside. He is, as usual, lost in his own world, this time imagining that he has supernatural powers. Tomoyo has grown used to Ando's strange behavior and chooses to ignore him, allowing him to indulge in his fantasies. As Hatoko joins them in the room, Ando once again pretends that his hand is in pain, claiming that he's trying to bring out his supernatural powers. Hatoko, noticing that Ando is in pain, attempts to call an ambulance, but Ando quickly grabs her phone and cancels the call. The youngest member of the club, Chifuyu Himeki, enters the room, and Ando decides to play a prank on her by putting tomato sauce on his head and pretending to be demon-possessed, causing Chifuyu to almost cry. The chairman of the literature club, Sayumi Takanashi, arrives and scolds Ando for wasting time with his fantasies about supernatural powers, stating that such powers do not exist in the real world. Determined to prove everyone wrong, Ando continues to insist that his supernatural powers are real. Suddenly, he utters a strange word that causes a bright light to appear in his hand. Everyone, including Ando himself, is puzzled by the appearance of this light. The light grows brighter and brighter until their world suddenly changes completely. 6 months after the incident, Ando's habits of fantasizing about the supernatural world and supernatural powers within the literature club room continue. However, things are now different. The supernatural powers that Ando had only talked about before have now turned into reality, and all the members of the literature club have their own supernatural powers. When Tomoyo sees Ando training his strength in the clubroom, she asks him to stop because the club members from the next room have repeatedly complained about the noise. Furthermore, with the revelation of the supernatural world, Ando no longer needs to prove his strength as it is now clear that it exists. Instead of heeding Tomoyo's words, Ando continues to train his powers and pretends to be in pain in front of Hatoko, who has just entered the clubroom. He tells her that his hands are on fire. Hatoko, who has the power of the water element, immediately creates a large water bubble to extinguish the supposed fire, but Ando quickly finds himself struggling to breathe inside the bubble. Tomoyo, using her supernatural powers to manipulate time, quickly saves Ando by getting him out of the bubble. Not long after, Chifuyu arrives in the room, using her supernatural powers to travel through dimensional portals. After Sayumi arrives at the clubroom, she immediately leads the agenda for the club's activities for that day, which includes an evaluation of their strengths in the wilderness. During this evaluation, Chifuyu will engage in a duel with Hatoko, while Ando and the others will serve as judges tasked with evaluating the fight. Chifuyu has the ability to create teleportation portals and a special power called creation, which allows her to create any object using her mind. Hatoko, on the other hand, has the ability to control elements in the world, so when Chifuyu showers her with several spears, Hatoko can easily repel the attack with her whirlwind strength. Hatoko counters with a combination of earth and fire to create magma, but Chifuyu is still able to overcome the attack. As the fight becomes more intense and dangerous, Sayumi asks Tomoyo to use her ability to stop time and bring them back to the literature club room at school. The plan for Ando and Sayumi to engage in a duel is cancelled because Sayumi's strength is not yet perfected. Ando, who is curious, was determined to uncover the mysterious powers of Sayumi. He devised a plan to lure her into revealing her abilities, but his scheme was abruptly interrupted by the arrival of the student council president, Mirai Kudo. As Kudo questioned the true purpose of the literature club, Ando confidently declared that he had a secret side to him. However, before he could elaborate further, Tomoyo, one of his clubmates, punched him in the face with a glove, desperate to keep their supernatural abilities a secret. To Ando's surprise, Kudo was already aware of their powers and revealed that she too possessed supernatural abilities. She challenged the literature club to showcase their abilities, but Ando was the only one eager to oblige. Unfortunately, Kudo's power was to steal the abilities of others and she quickly seized Ando's powers, dismissing them as useless. Feeling defeated and insulted, Ando dejectedly looked on as Kudo continued to pressure the rest of the literature club to fight. But Tomoyo refused to participate in a battle that would only showcase Kudo's ability to steal powers. Sayumi, however, was not one to back down. She intimidated Kudo with her karate skills and eventually forced her to give up and surrender. After the tense confrontation with the literature club, Kudo revealed that she had only acquired her power-stealing ability a month ago. She explained that she had received a mysterious email from an unknown sender inviting her to join a literary club that was known to possess supernatural powers. This revelation left Kudo confused and unsure of how she had come to possess such an ability. Sayumi, however, had a theory. She suspected that someone had intentionally awakened Kudo's supernatural power. She suggested that the mysterious email sender might have played a role in this, and that Kudo was not the only one with awakened powers. One day, Ando had an unusual idea. He proposed that the members of the literary club create superhero-like nicknames for themselves. Tomoyo, who had no interest in the activity, was forced to go along with Ando's game because Ando had convinced Chifuyu to join in. Hatoko came up with nicknames inspired by different colors, like the Power Rangers. Sayumi created nicknames that were similar to princess names, and Chifuyu came up with names inspired by fruits. Ando found the strange names confusing and was unable to decide who would be called what. He eventually gave up when Hatoko insisted on being called Hatoko the Joker and Chifuyu wanted to be called the Pineapple. To everyone's surprise, Tomoyo, who had been unenthusiastic about the activity from the beginning, managed to come up with a cool and unique nickname that received applause from the rest of the club. She felt proud of herself and started to enjoy the activity more. Not long after the nickname game, Kudo appeared in the club room with a surprising revelation. She claimed that Ando had sent her a love letter and she wanted to meet him to discuss it. Tomoyo, who couldn't believe that Ando would express his feelings to Kudo, immediately protested against Kudo's claim. Ando, on the other hand, was confused and denied ever sending any love letter to Kudo. To prove her claim, Kudo decided to read the letter out loud to the entire club. As she read the letter, it became clear that it was not a love letter, but rather a letter expressing gratitude towards Kudo for her help in the past. But Kudo wasn't done yet. She pointed out that in the recipient's column, the letter was addressed to grateful lover. Everyone in the club was confused by this, and Ando denied that he had written that. Kudo, however, had misunderstood the meaning behind Ando's letter. He had actually intended to call her a thief, or robber, because of her ability to steal others' supernatural powers. Despite this revelation, Kudo still believed that Ando had feelings for her, and she asked him to call her by her first name, Mirai, to be more familiar with her. Tomoyo and Chifuyu tried to stop Kudo's foolishness, but Kudo didn't listen. Instead, she insulted Tomoyo's smaller breasts, causing Tomoyo to become angry and intend to attack her. But Kudo used this opportunity to steal Tomoyo's supernatural powers. Fearing that the situation would become even more chaotic and complicated, Ando was forced to comply with Kudo's request and started calling her Mirai. The next day, Kudo sauntered into Ando's classroom, greeting him with a flirtatious stare as if they were already in a romantic relationship. Despite Ando's obvious lack of interest, Kudo continued to dote on him, apologizing for her student council duties that would keep her from accompanying him to the literature club. Ando could only put on a blank expression and go along with Kudo's charade. After escorting Ando to the student council room, Kudo asked him to save her email address so they could keep in touch, and warned him not to talk to any other girls. Unfortunately, the other members of the literature club witnessed the entire exchange, and were deeply troubled by the situation. They pressured Ando to clear up the misunderstanding with Kudo and put an end to her advances. Sayumi even suggested devising a plan to make Kudo realize that Ando was not interested in her. But Ando refused their help, determined to solve the problem on his own. After all, he reasoned, it was his own mistake that had led to the misunderstanding in the first place. In the afternoon, Ando met with Kudo privately to set the record straight. He informed her that the letter he had sent her the other day was not a love letter, but an invitation for her to join the literary club. Kudo was devastated by the revelation and tried her best to hold back her tears in front of Ando, while Ando could only bow his head and apologize for the confusion. After Kudo left, Tomoyo approached Ando and asked him what the reason behind sending the letter to Kudo was. Ando explained that the letter's content had been about unity, and that he wanted people with special talents like Kudo to come together with their clubs so that they could all become stronger. That night, Kudo sent Ando a message of apology, and Ando was relieved to know that she was able to accept his rejection graciously. The next morning, Ando's teacher, Sadomi, summoned him to the teacher's lounge to discuss his peculiar habit of writing strange words on his exam answer sheets. Despite this odd behavior, Ando always managed to score highly on tests, so Sadomi chose to overlook it and go back to sleep. However, shortly after Ando's visit, his classmate Sagami Shizumu stormed into the teacher's office, protesting against Sadomi, who he believed had stolen his girlfriend. Ando tried to intervene, asking Sagami if he was still in contact with his girlfriend who was in their class. But Sagami only became more upset, snapping at Ando for carelessly mentioning his ex-girlfriend's name. The argument between the two of them escalated, and Sadomi, fed up with the chaos, quickly kicked Ando and Sagami out of her office. After sitting on the stairs for a while, Sagami left Ando and went to meet a third grader in the backyard of the school. Not long after, Sayumi came to find Ando and invited him to join her and the other members of the literary club in their recreational activities. Chifuyu led the group to the tennis court, where they spent their time playing tennis using their unique abilities. During their game, a small fight broke out between Tomoyo and Ando, after Ando accidentally saw Tomoyo's underwear. However, Sayumi and Hatoko were able to intervene and put a stop to the argument. As they continued to play, Hatoko used her fireball technique to hit the ball, and Ando was frightened and almost burned by the fire. In retaliation, Ando attempted to use his own black firepower to get back at Hatoko, but ended up accidentally burning his own hair instead. After the club's recreational activities were over, Ando shared a book called Vivra with the other members of the literary club. He explained that the book contained secrets about their club, as well as the nicknames of all the members. As the school day came to a close, Tomoyo and the other girls invited Ando to go karaoke with them. However, Ando remembered that he had left his book in the clubroom, and decided to go back to school to retrieve it. As he left, the girls started to discuss Ando's nickname and his rather immature behavior. Despite the girls' perceptions of Ando, Sayumi defended him, saying that he had a mature and responsible side that he didn't often show to others. She shared a specific example of Ando's maturity, telling the group that a while back, after discovering her power of restoration, Ando had warned Sayumi never to revive a dead person as it could lead to disastrous consequences. He had instructed Sayumi to only restore temporary, inanimate objects and to never interfere with living beings such as animals or beasts. Upon Ando's arrival in the literature clubroom, he was greeted by the sight of a young man in a long robe reading Vivra's notebook. The young man, Hajime Kiryu, revealed that he was interested in Ando's nickname Guiltia Sinjurai and shared that he also had the same fantasy syndrome as Ando. Kiryu extended an invitation to Ando to have lunch together at a restaurant, during which they discussed the contents of the book. However, their conversation was interrupted when Kiryu received a call from his boss, summoning him to the battle site, as his strength was needed. Ando, who initially believed that Kiryu was going to engage in a physical fight, was amazed and offered to help him, with a serious and determined expression. Ando also suspected that Kiryu may have the same fantasy syndrome as him, where someone creates their own imaginary world and asks those around them to enter it. Not long after, Ando was approached by Tomoyo, who was also studying at the cafe. She greeted him and inquired if he had been able to find the book he was searching for. Ando informed her that the book had been found by Kiryu, to which Tomoyo expressed surprise as she didn't know that Kiryu was her own brother who doesn't come home often. Tomoyo urged Kiryu to return home immediately as their parents were worried about him. However, Kiryu disregarded her advice and instead asked her to inform their parents to send him monthly money to his account. Before leaving the cafe, Kiryu revealed to Ando a powerful weapon of mass destruction and the possibility of their paths crossing again. After Kiryu left, Tomoyo revealed to Ando that Kiryu was her half-brother, born to a different mother and hence using a different surname. She shared that Kiryu had been a highly intelligent student and had accomplished academic excellence, and had even been quite popular on campus due to his good looks. However, everything changed when Kiryu became deeply absorbed in his own world, altering his perspective and ultimately leading him to quit college. The next day, as Ando was on his way to school, he crossed paths with Chifuyu, who asked him to carry her to her school. Ando, carrying Chifuyu on his back, asked why she didn't use her teleportation portal power. Chifuyu explained that there were too many people at the school gate, and using her power in such a crowded place could potentially expose her abilities. Furthermore, she revealed that she had been considering quitting school but did not wish to share the reason why. Once they arrived at the school gate, Chifuyu introduced Ando to her classmate Madoka Kuki, who appeared to be very attentive and caring towards Chifuyu. As they parted ways, Ando realized that he was late for class and quickly ran at high speed, but accidentally collided with Satomi. Satomi then questioned Ando about why Chifuyu had been frequenting the high school literature club room, as she was still in elementary school and it was not appropriate for her to be hanging out with high school students. The other day, Ando suddenly thought of an unexpected idea. He proposed that they use Chifuyu's creative talents to make cosplay costumes, depicting their favorite anime characters. Chifuyu was on board with the idea, and the group decided to have a little fun with it by picking the costumes at random. Ando was the first to pick a costume from the box and was delighted to find that he had picked the servant costume that Hatoko had designed. Sayumi eagerly snapped a picture of him and sent it to Sagami, one of their other friends. It was now Sayumi's turn to pick a costume, and she was thrilled when she pulled out a lottery paper that had a sexy bloomer costume that she had designed herself. Hatoko was next, and she picked the sun costume that Chifuyu had made, while Chifuyu got the slave costume that Ando had created. Lastly, Tomoyo was happy to find that she had picked the bikini costume that she had designed herself. After they had all picked their costumes and put them on, Chifuyu suggested that they take a group photo as a memento of their fun day. They all gathered together, smiling and posing for the camera, but their joy was short-lived. Suddenly, Satomi entered the club room, catching them all off guard. They were all half-naked and in various stages of undressing, and they feared that Satomi would see them in their compromising positions. Luckily, they were able to think quickly and pretended that they were just cleaning the club room. Satomi didn't suspect a thing and asked Chifuyu why she had skipped school that day and gone to the literature club room instead. Chifuyu explained that she had claimed to have a stomachache and went home, but Satomi was not convinced and explained that she would have to tell Chifuyu's mother about this incident, and asked her not to skip school again. Feeling guilty, Chifuyu agreed, and then she returned to her house, using the teleport portal. As soon as she arrived, Kuki came to her house to ask her why she had skipped school. Meanwhile, Ando had just arrived home from school, eager to watch the erotic movie he had recorded earlier. But as he prepared to play it in his room, his older sister, Chifuyu, walked in, informing him that she was in the middle of a fight with her best friend, Kuki. Ando listened as Chifuyu explained that she had been spending a lot of time in the school's literature club, which Kuki saw as a problem. Feeling concerned for his sister, Ando offered to help mediate the situation between Chifuyu and Kuki. But before he could put on his clothes, Chifuyu sent him to her room to talk to Kuki. Kuki was shocked to find Ando in Chifuyu's room and immediately assumed that he had some sort of perverted intentions toward Chifuyu. Kuki begged Chifuyu to leave the literature club and stop hanging out with the perverted people there. But Chifuyu refused, saying that she had her own reasons for staying in the club that she couldn't explain to Kuki. Kuki, hurt and frustrated, chose to end their friendship. As Ando watched the scene unfold, he couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness for his sister and her lost friendship. He knew that Chifuyu had a passion for literature, and that it was important for her to pursue it, even if it meant losing a friend. The next day, Ando thanked his sister for keeping their secret powers hidden and promised to help her reconcile with Kuki. In the afternoon, he met with Kuki, who was still wary of him, but Ando managed to convince her to talk about this situation with Chifuyu. Meanwhile, Hatoko stumbled upon Chifuyu's torn squirrel doll and offered to help fix it. As she worked on the doll, she invited Chifuyu to talk with her. As Chifuyu saw her beloved doll restored to its former condition, she began to wonder if all the broken things in the world could be repaired. Hatoko reassured her that with effort and determination, any problem could be fixed. On the other hand, Ando tells Kuki that the reason why he often plays with Chifuyu is that he is an acute lolicon, a person who is very obsessed with playing with children. Hearing that, Kuki panicked and prepared to run away. But before she could leave, Chifuyu arrived and explained everything to her. She gave Kuki a doll as a gesture of goodwill, and the two of them had a heart-to-heart conversation. After understanding each other's perspectives, Chifuyu and Kuki made up and their friendship resumed. The next day, when Ando arrived at the literature club room, Sayumi and the other girls teased him about being a lolicon, despite the fact that it was all just a misunderstanding. Ando was a bit embarrassed, but he brushed it off and focused on more important matters. He asked Chifuyu why she had dropped out of school and was surprised to hear that she had decided to attend a homeschooling program. Chifuyu explained that she wanted to be able to get to class faster and have more time to spend with her friends in the literature club. The following day, the literature club members were all busy with their individual activities. Ando, however, came in with his beloved guitar, Infinity Maria. Chifuyu, who had always been interested in playing the guitar, begged Ando to lend her the guitar. But despite her best efforts, Ando refused to lend it to her, even though she had used her puppy dog eyes on him. Feeling a bit dejected, Chifuyu came up with a plan. She asked Ando to close his eyes and then magically transformed his guitar into two identical copies. Ando, thinking that Chifuyu was trying to trick him, confidently destroyed both guitars, only to realize later that one of them was the real Infinity Maria. He could only cry and shout Maria's name in despair. Luckily, Sayumi was able to use her restoration power to fix the guitar, saving it from certain destruction. After school, Ando and Hatoko make their way home together, but Ando soon realizes that he's left his bag behind in the clubroom. He apologetically asks Hatoko to go on without him, as he needs to go back to school to retrieve it. Upon returning to the clubroom, Ando is surprised to find Tomoyo there, lost in fantasy in front of a mirror. He soon discovers that she too suffers from fantasy syndrome. But Ando's surprise doesn't end there, as he also catches a glimpse of a short story Tomoyo has written on her laptop. Embarrassed, Tomoyo tries to hide it from Ando, but he assures her that there's nothing to be ashamed of, that writing fantasy novels are not something to be ashamed of. Hearing this, Tomoyo opens up to Ando and reveals her dream of becoming a fiction writer. Ando is happy to see Tomoyo find her passion and promises to support her in any way he can as she works towards her goal. He reminds her that there are still many opportunities for her to learn and grow as a writer, even though she may have failed in the past. Ando cheers up Tomoyo and even entertains her with his black fire trick to lift her spirits. A few days later, during class, Tomoyo was caught playing on her phone and was reprimanded by the teacher, who made her turn off her device. But during the break, Tomoyo couldn't contain her excitement and rushed down the stairway to check something. Ando, who was passing by, overheard her talking about passing the first round of a story writing competition. Tomoyo, feeling embarrassed, reluctantly tells Ando about her accomplishment. Ando, thrilled for her, invites Tomoyo to dinner with the other club members to celebrate. But Tomoyo, not yet ready to share her success with her friends, agrees to go to lunch with Ando on Saturday instead. The thought of the lunch date fills Tomoyo with excitement, and she spends the evening picking out the perfect outfit for the occasion. On Saturday morning, Tomoyo arrives at the meeting location feeling a bit nervous, questioning if the skirt she was wearing was too short. Ando spots a promotion for cheap packages for couples and playfully suggests that they pretend to be a couple to take advantage of the deal. After they finish their lunch, they take a walk and visit some of their favorite places together, eventually relaxing in a park while enjoying strawberry drinks. As they sit together, Tomoyo mentions that she wanted to take Ando to a book release event the following week, but the sound of the clock interrupts her, and she decides not to bring it up again. Unbeknownst to them, Hatoko is also shopping in the area and accidentally spots Ando and Tomoyo out together. The next day, Ando is thrilled when he receives a DVD game as a birthday gift from his friends. Sometime before, Sayumi proposed an idea to all members of the literature club to wipe out their supernatural powers and live as normal high school students. But Ando rejected the plan, stating that their powers were not something they could easily acquire, and it would be a waste to get rid of them. He believed that they should embrace their unique abilities and use them to their advantage. A few days later, Sayumi misses school due to a fever after she had been working overtime all night to create a video game that she had gifted to Ando. Upon hearing this, Ando decides to visit Sayumi at her home to check on her condition. When Ando arrives at Sayumi's large house, instead of inquiring about her health, he compliments Sayumi on her glasses and nightgown, causing her to blush in embarrassment. Shortly after, Sayumi's younger sister, Maya, arrives and brings a memorial album book of Sayumi from when she was in middle school. As Ando looks through the photo album, he realizes that Sayumi was once the student council president in middle school. He asks her why she did not join the student council committee at their high school. Instead of answering Ando's question, Sayumi diverts the conversation and asks him to go home immediately as she was feeling tired from the medicine she had taken. The scene shifted back to some time ago when Ando and Sayumi stood facing each other, ready to engage in a one-on-one duel. The stakes were high, as the outcome of this battle would decide whether or not they would wipe out their supernatural powers. Ando had the advantage, as his powers were superior in a fight. But Sayumi had a secret weapon. She was a master of the martial art of karate. The duel began and it quickly became clear that Sayumi's training had given her an edge. Despite Ando's superior powers, Sayumi was able to defeat him easily. But Ando wasn't one to go down without a fight. With Sayumi standing victorious, Ando unleashed his black fire power, determined to defeat her. But Sayumi was quick to act. She pulled Ando's hand and twisted it backward, causing him to scream out in pain. Ando's attack was thwarted, and Sayumi emerged victorious. The present moment brought Ando back to reality, where he noticed that Sayumi was once again absent from the activities of the literary club. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was being hidden from him. Just then, Ando's phone rang. It was Maya, informing him that he had accidentally left his student card at her house. Ando saw this as an opportunity to learn more about Sayumi's recent behavior. Since Maya had a close relationship with her sister, he asked if she knew the reason for Sayumi's sudden departure from the school's student council committee. Maya explained that Sayumi was a very perfectionist person, and she often argued or disagreed with other student council members during her tenure as student council president. This led to her stepping down from her position and not wanting to join any other student council activities. In addition to seeking information from Maya, Ando also visited Kudo to inquire about Sayumi's refusal to join the student council committee. Kudo explained that it was likely that a supernatural force was preventing Sayumi from becoming a student council member, causing Ando to understand the reasoning behind Sayumi's previous proposal to eliminate their supernatural powers. He regretted having forced her to retain her powers and immediately went to her house to apologize for his actions. Upon arriving at Sayumi's house, Ando immediately bowed deeply in front of her and apologized for not understanding her position. Sayumi assured him that she held no ill will towards him and explained that her decision not to join the student council was not because of the power she possessed, but because of her fear that bad people would use her abilities to commit crimes and hurt others. She revealed that she had been considering removing her powers but had not yet found a way to do so. Sayumi expressed her hope that one day she would have the opportunity to join the student council and make up for her mistakes while still in junior high. Hearing Sayumi's confession, Ando made a promise to teach her how to better understand and empathize with others. He assured her that together they would find a way for her to remove her powers if that was what she truly wanted. The scene shifts to the past, where a young Hatoko is seen crying and trembling with fear, huddled under a staircase. Ando, who witnesses her distress, quickly approaches and asks what has upset her. Through sobs and sniffles, Hatoko explains that she accidentally activated the fire alarm, causing the entire school to gather outside under the assumption that a real fire had occurred. Ando, understanding her embarrassment, takes her hand and leads her to the teachers to apologize for the mistake. Fast forward to the present, and Ando is being scolded by his older sister, Machi, for oversleeping. Machi urges him to hurry and go to Hatoko's house to pick her up as she will be joining them for dinner that night. Hatoko's mother is out of town for business, leaving her to stay at Ando's house for the evening. As Ando and Hatoko walk to school that morning, Hatoko expresses her excitement about cooking with Machi and Ando later that night. In the afternoon, during literary club activities, Sayumi assigned a task to all members of the club to write a short story in various genres. Everyone managed to finish their writing with ease, except for Tomoyo, who was usually skilled in writing. She didn't submit any story at all. After the club's activities had ended, Ando wanted to speak privately with Tomoyo, so he asked Hatoko to go home first. On her way home, Hatoko remembered a past incident where Ando scolded her for not finishing a novel that he had lent her. Meanwhile, in the literature club room, Ando asked Tomoyo why she didn't complete the task of writing the story assigned by Sayumi earlier. Tomoyo confessed that she was struggling to decide which story to write, and lately her concentration had been decreasing, making it difficult for her to find new inspiration for her writing. Ando listened patiently and then urged her not to keep her problems to herself, and to tell people about them. After Ando's encouragement, Tomoyo started showing Ando her sketchbooks which contained character designs, but she still didn't know a suitable name for the character. Upon Ando's arrival home, Hatoko and Machi had already prepared a delicious meal for dinner. Hatoko asked Ando what he and Tomoyo talked about earlier, but before Ando could answer, Hatoko abruptly left the room after learning that Ando received a message from Tomoyo. It becomes clear that Hatoko has developed romantic feelings for Ando, and she begins to feel confused by the closeness of the relationship between Ando and Tomoyo. Hatoko, unable to control her emotions, starts crying and mumbling various strange words that Ando had said to her before running away. Confused by Hatoko's sudden emotional outburst, Ando attempts to chase after her to find out if he has done anything wrong to her. As Ando searched for Hatoko, he stumbled upon Sagami, who informed him that Hatoko had run off in a state of tears. Ando immediately contacted Tomoyo and asked if Hatoko had gone to her house, but Tomoyo said that Hatoko had not. As Ando searched for Hatoko in various places, Tomoyo offered to help him contact Hatoko's cell phone. Meanwhile, as Hatoko walked and thought about Ando's words, she accidentally ran into Kiryu on a hill. On the other hand, Sayumi and Tomoyo came to Ando to help him find Hatoko's whereabouts. Ando confided in them that he had been pressuring Hatoko to understand all of the fantasies he had shared with her, even though they were just his imagination. He regretted having demanded that Hatoko understand him, while he couldn't understand her feelings and didn't know that it was putting a burden on her. Upon hearing this, Tomoyo immediately slapped Ando, and reminded him that Hatoko always felt happy when she was with him, and he shouldn't blame himself continuously. She reminded him that he was the person who made Hatoko smile the most. Elsewhere, Kiryu tells Hatoko that a fantasy syndrome sufferer like Ando often has complex imaginations and can be difficult to understand, but the goal of sharing their thoughts with others is to gain attention, not necessarily to be understood. Hatoko then asked Kiryu what he believed to be the source of happiness in the world. Kiryu pondered for a moment before stating that some people believe love to be the ultimate source of happiness, while others believe that being chosen or special is the key to happiness. Just as Kiryu was about to introduce Hatoko to his friends, she collapsed from exhaustion. Meanwhile, Ando, Tomoyo, and Sayumi were still searching for Hatoko. Despite the passing of time and the worsening weather, they had yet to find any trace of her. As the darkness descended and the temperature dropped, Sayumi decided to use her supernatural powers to locate Hatoko's whereabouts. The scene shifted to a moment of intense tension, as Kiryu prepared to duel his friend, Shugo Toki, for the nickname they both coveted. Just as Toki was about to unleash his electric powers, Kiryu acted swiftly and punched him in the face, absorbing Toki's body into a whirlwind that caused him to lose his memory. After the fight, Kiryu sat down to chat with a little fairy named Ritir and his friend Hitomi, discussing the amateur match he had just won. Despite the fact that the amateur fight was a small performance put on by the fairies, Kiryu had still entered the match in order to win the prize, which was the opportunity to make a request of the fairies. The next day, Kiryu and his friends set out to confront the F-class fighters who had been attempting to disband the amateur fairy match. Ritir pleaded with Kiryu to defeat the F-class fighters, but he refused, as he did not like taking orders from others. After Kiryu left, Hitomi, feeling confident in her abilities, planned to defeat the F-class fighters along with her colleagues in order to preserve the amateur match competition. Ritir, seeing the situation, secretly contacted Kiryu, who was meeting with Ando, and asked him to come to the F-class headquarters and help his friends from behind. When Hitomi and her friends arrived at the F-class headquarters, they were immediately struck by the powerful aura emanating from the place. Shortly after they entered the base, they were ambushed by a little girl named Uemiko Tanaka, but Kiryu was able to intervene and thwart the attack. To everyone's surprise, Kiryu turned out to be familiar with Tanaka and he invited her to join their group. Tanaka happily accepted the offer, as Kiryu always provided her with the chewing gum that she loved. However, Kiryu's left eye had been causing him trouble lately due to the overuse of his powers and he planned to kidnap a healer from Ando's group to help him. Unfortunately, they ended up catching the wrong person and instead of Sayumi, they kidnapped Hatoko. On the other hand, Sayumi and the other club members gathered in the club room with a determined goal in mind, to summon Hatoko using Sayumi's restoration powers. As the group began the ritual, Sayumi carefully summoned each member one by one until finally, she successfully brought Hatoko back to them. Hatoko, still groggy from the experience, was met with an immediate apology from Ando. Tomoyo explained that she had been spending more time with Ando lately because she was seeking his help in writing a novel. Ando admitted that he couldn't imagine his life without Hatoko, as she held a special place in his heart. Just as Ando was about to confess his feelings to Hatoko, his fantasy syndrome fogged up his mind, causing him to release a powerful and dangerous black firepower that was becoming increasingly uncontrollable. The next day, Tomoyo came to Ando and handed over the light novel she had written, seeking his input. Tomoyo had previously underestimated Ando, thinking of him as only a joker and child. But after seeing another side of him, she realized that Ando could also be serious and responsible. Ando confided in her that he had tried to overcome his fantasy syndrome, but the plan failed after he met a mysterious girl wearing sunglasses and a gray wig during his junior high school years. Meanwhile, Kiryu's friends were analyzing footage they had obtained from the F-class fighters' headquarters. The footage revealed that an F-class fighter had secretly escaped during the attack. One day, while Ando and his friends were in the club room, he proudly shared with them his new nickname. But at that time, the group was supposed to be studying together to prepare for their upcoming semester exams. Instead, Ando was goofing off, feeling tired. Sayumi scolded him and warned him that she would seal his power if he didn't start studying with the others. Ando then began to ask about the value and ranking of each club member. Hatoko was ranked 32nd, Ando was ranked 38th, and Sayumi was ranked 2nd after Kudo. Upon learning that Ando was ranked higher than her, Tomoyo began to feel anxious as she was ranked 88th out of 198 students, which meant she needed to study harder. Chifuyu, who happened to be there, also casually called Tomoyo a fool, even though she too often scored a 0 on her exams. In the afternoon, Hatoko offered to help Tomoyo study at a cafe, and Tomoyo gratefully accepted. When they arrived at the cafe, Tomoyo, who was stressed about her exam results, began to speak uncontrollably about strange topics, similar to the way Ando often spoke. Tomoyo apologized to Hatoko, and explained that many people with fantasy syndrome often talk incessantly about their imagination. Hatoko understood Tomoyo's situation as Ando also had the same habit. However, realizing that Tomoyo and Ando had a lot in common made Hatoko feel jealous, so she decided to leave and go home. A few days after completing their exams, Ando seized the opportunity to tease Tomoyo, who still hadn't managed to surpass his rank. The two of them were cleaning up the literature club room when they stumbled upon Ando's registration form from when he first joined the club. Tomoyo couldn't help but burst out laughing at the silly goals Ando had written on the form. During the laughter, Chifuyu suddenly asked Ando if he liked her. Without hesitation, Ando confirmed his feelings to avoid disappointing Chifuyu. As they were taking out the trash together, Chifuyu invited Ando to go swimming with her over the summer break. It turned out that Chifuyu had fallen in love with Ando, and the next day, she confided in Kuki about her feelings. In addition to Hatoko, Sayumi also harbored secret romantic feelings for Ando, which were evident in the time and effort she put into creating a game for him. Sagami, who happened to know about Sayumi's feelings, offered to help her get closer to Ando. At the same time, Hatoko confided in Tomoyo about her own romantic feelings towards Ando and asked for her help in understanding how Ando felt about her. As the day came to a close, Tomoyo checked the announcement of the winners of the novel competition she participated in, but to her disappointment, she had not won. Despite this, she felt it was important for Ando to know about it. She intended to tell him about it as soon as possible. On the first day of the holiday, Ando went on vacation with Chifuyu and Kuki, enjoying themselves at the public pool in the city center. However, Kuki couldn't help feeling a little jealous of Ando for capturing Chifuyu's attention and making her fall in love with him. So, she tried to do everything in her power to convince Chifuyu that Ando was not a suitable match for her. Kuki deliberately bought a lot of food to drain Ando's pocket money, but her small stomach could no longer hold any more after she finished a serving of fried buckwheat noodles. Feeling embarrassed by her failure, Kuki decided to prove that Ando was not as smart as Chifuyu thought. She forced him to participate in a meticulous intelligence event being held at the pool. Unfortunately, Chifuyu was also eager to answer all the questions given by the hosts because she really wanted the second prize, a dolphin doll. While the hosts of the show gave some very difficult questions in the last round, all the participants were unable to answer them, but Ando confidently answered the question and managed to win the first prize, a car. Surprisingly, Ando chose to take the dolphin doll gift that Chifuyu so desperately wanted. Seeing the sincerity shown by Ando, Kuki began to think that Ando was not actually a pervert and that he truly cared for Chifuyu. Furthermore, while Chifuyu was asleep, cuddling her dolphin doll, Ando told Kuki to always stay by Chifuyu's side and accompany her. Kuki's outlook on Ando began to change, and she promised that she would always be Chifuyu's best friend. The next day, as Ando was browsing through comics at a bookstore, he received a message from Sayumi asking him to meet her at the bus stop. Sayumi explained that she had planned to go on vacation with her little sister, Maya, but Maya had cancelled their plans at the last moment. So, Sayumi wanted to invite Ando to hang out and go somewhere together. To Ando's surprise, the place that Sayumi wanted to visit was the public pool that he had previously visited with Chifuyu. As Sayumi prepared to slip into her swimsuit, Sagami made an unexpected appearance. He informed her that he had instructed Sayumi to change into a highly revealing, transparent bikini. Sayumi, always self-conscious about her clothing being transparent, went to great lengths to keep her clothes from getting wet, especially around Ando. She avoided playing games like beam jumping and water slides and did her best to shield herself from splashing water. However, her efforts were in vain as her swimsuit was unexpectedly drenched by a passing water slide player. In a state of panic, Sayumi frantically tried to cover herself and cried out for Ando not to look. But to her dismay, she discovered that her swimsuit wasn't transparent at all, and Sagami had only been playing a cruel prank on her. Enraged, Sayumi stormed into the dressing room and punched Sagami in the face, who had been laughing at the success of his scheme. Sayumi made it clear to herself that she would not resort to underhanded tactics to win over Ando's affection. She wanted to discover his true feelings for her through honest interactions. After Sayumi left, Sagami contacted one of the F-class fighters, Naoe Hagiura, to discuss a mysterious matter. Ando and Sayumi spent the remainder of their vacation having fun and sharing stories. Later that night, Tomoyo called Ando and invited him to meet her the next day, but Ando had to decline as he and his family were going on vacation with Hatoko's family, an annual tradition. After hanging up, Tomoyo reminisced about the past when she was struggling to fix her loose bicycle chain, and how Ando had come to her aid and fixed it for her, not realizing that the girl in front of him was Tomoyo. As Ando laid eyes on Tomoyo, he was taken aback by her eccentric and strange appearance. He quickly deduced that she was suffering from fantasy syndrome. Ando implored her to stop her delusions and return to living a normal life in the real world. However, Tomoyo refused to accept this and, with a determined look on her face, she revved up her bike and deliberately collided with Ando. Through gritted teeth, she exclaimed that the fantasy world was just as real as the one they lived in and that Ando should open his heart to see it. The following day, as Ando and his family vacationed with Hatoko's family, Hatoko devised a plan to use the opportunity to tease Ando and get closer to him. She donned a provocative bikini and forced Ando to participate in various activities and games together, from playing volleyball and applying sunscreen to playing chess. As her plans progressed smoothly, she began to make her move and intended to express her feelings to Ando. However, her efforts were thwarted as she suddenly collapsed from exhaustion, having spent the entire day running under the scorching sun. While Hatoko relished her vacation with Ando, Tomoyo spent her holiday alone at a public swimming pool that Ando had previously visited. She was unable to enjoy herself as she was surrounded by couples enjoying each other's company, while she was alone and miserable. As the day drew to a close, Tomoyo returned home after spending hours at the pool, feeling sorry for herself for having gone there alone. As Hatoko and Ando relaxed by the beach at night, Hatoko couldn't shake the feeling of guilt towards Tomoyo for what she had said earlier. She had only wanted to tell Tomoyo that she liked Ando, but her behavior had come across as overbearing and almost as if she was warning Tomoyo to stay away from him. She then asked Ando what would happen to their friendship if they ever went to different campuses or moved to different cities. Ando replied that he had never thought about it, but Hatoko didn't have to worry as he would always consider her his best friend and someone very important to him. Hearing this, Hatoko became emotional and asked Ando if she could start calling him Juraikun as a sign of their close relationship. The day after Ando returned home from the beach, he couldn't wait to see Tomoyo again. He missed her and the fun they had together, so he picked up the phone and called her, asking her to meet him at the festival that night. Excited to see Ando, Tomoyo eagerly agreed. As the night of the festival arrived, Tomoyo donned a beautiful and fashionable yukata suit, while Ando chose a sleek black yukata. When they finally met, Ando couldn't help but stare in awe at Tomoyo's stunning appearance. She looked even more beautiful than he remembered. When they walked around the festival, Ando and Tomoyo indulged in delicious snacks and played various games. Ando, feeling confident in his shooting abilities, bragged to Tomoyo about his skills. But when they came across a prize shootout, Tomoyo surprised Ando by revealing her own impressive marksmanship. She easily rivaled and defeated Ando, leaving him feeling humbled and impressed. After the festival, Ando invited Tomoyo to a quieter place to talk. Tomoyo had something she wanted to tell him, and Ando was all ears. Tomoyo confided in Ando that she had failed to win a novel writing competition. Ando could see the disappointment on her face, and he tried to comfort her by telling her that hard work and disappointment are all part of the process of becoming a better writer. Tomoyo was moved by Ando's words, which were mature and understanding. Ando then suggested that they go up the hill to watch the fireworks display together, hoping that the beautiful display would lift Tomoyo's spirits and encourage her to not give up. As they watched the fireworks, Tomoyo realized something she had not been aware of before. She too late learned that she had fallen in love with Ando. The other night, Hagiura, a former member of Class F, came to Kudo suddenly and directly attacked her. Kudo was shocked and frightened by the sudden attack, and she was left wondering what could have prompted Hagiura to do such a thing. A few days later, while the school was still on holiday, Kudo contacted all members of the literature club and asked them to gather in the club room. They were all surprised by the sudden meeting, but Kudo had an urgent matter to discuss with them. She told them that her hands were badly burned and she needed their help to heal them. As Hatoko was about to use her power of water to heal Kudo's burns, Kudo instead took her power and used it to attack Hatoko with a burst of fire. Chifuyu, seeing what was happening, tried to intervene, but Kudo also took her power and used it against her. Feeling that there was no other way to protect themselves and their friends, Tomoyo decided to take the entire club to a different time dimension. After the incident, the literature club members decided to gather at a karaoke club to discuss what had happened and try to make sense of Kudo's strange behavior. Sayumi was the first to speak. She felt that the person who attacked them was not the real Kudo and suspected that someone was controlling her to attack their group. Ando then suggested that they try to contact Kudo and invite her to meet with them in the literature club room the next day at 1 o'clock. Tomoyo was hesitant. She asked Ando why he would want to meet with Kudo, who obviously wanted to harm them, but Ando reassured her that he had already devised a plan to deal with Kudo later. Sayumi's suspicions about Kudo were confirmed when they discovered that the person who had seized Hatoko's and Chifuyu's powers was none other than Hagiura. Hagiura had previously attacked Kudo and taken control of her mind, working with Sagami to seize the powers of all members of the literary club in order to become stronger. Hagiura was using Kudo's mind to hide his own body, keeping it safe from enemies. Ando shared his plan with the rest of the group, but it was met with resistance as it was considered extreme and dangerous. Tomoyo rejected the plan, but with limited time to save Kudo, they were left with no choice but to proceed with it. Despite the risks, the group was determined to save their friend and put a stop to Hagiura's nefarious scheme. Ando was left alone in the literary club room, which had been completely transformed by Hagiura's mysterious powers. Hagiura approached him with a sly grin and asked when Ando's friends will come to join them in the club room. But Ando informed him that his friends wouldn't be coming. This made Hagiura attack Ando several times. Ando fought back by using his black firepower, which had evolved into an immortal black flame, a flame that will never be extinguished. When Hagiura seizes the power from Ando, she soon discovered that she was unable to extinguish the fire unleashed by Ando. It continued to burn fiercely and consumed Hagiura's entire body. This was not the first time that Ando had encountered such a situation. Previously, he was forced to cut off his own hand and reconnect it with Sayumi's power. Ando, knowing that he held the key to extinguishing the fire, lied to Hagiura, telling her that the only person who knew how to put out the flames was himself. He made a deal with Hagiura, promising to reveal the secret if she agreed to stop controlling Kudo's mind. Desperate to avoid being trapped in someone else's body, Hagiura quickly accepted the deal and agreed to exchange her soul for Kudo. Ando immediately took Kudo to the club room, where Sayumi performed the amputation. Hatoko and Chifuyu were left to watch in tears as Ando and Kudo's hands were cut off, but Sayumi was able to restore their hands. Hagiura, frustrated that her plan for power had been thwarted by Ando and his friends, began to plot her revenge. Sagami, on the other hand, was in awe of Ando and his friends' abilities. Not long after, Kiryu came to find the two of them, determined to teach them a lesson for disturbing Ando and his friends. Once the situation was brought under control, Sayumi visited Kudo at her home to apologize for the extreme measures the literary club had taken to save her. Kudo understood and thanked Sayumi, but she was confused as to why the members of the literary club would go to such lengths to save her. Sayumi explained that it was all Ando's idea and that he already considered Kudo a friend and felt compelled to save her. The next day, Hatoko and Tomoyo went shopping for books together, and then headed to a cafe for a drink and a chat. During their conversation, Tomoyo confided in Hatoko that she had recently realized she was in love with Ando, but that they would compete fairly for his love. One day, while Ando was relaxing in a park chair with Chifuyu, he told her to never hurt anyone and not to try too hard to make others happy. He emphasized that the only person who should make Chifuyu happy first is herself, and that she should use her power for fun or to impress others. Unbeknownst to Ando, Tomoyo, Hatoko, and Sayumi had been listening to the conversation, and Tomoyo immediately hit Ando on the head for giving Chifuyu bad advice. The journey of Ando and his friends continues, and they are all unsure of what the future holds for their friendship in 5 or 10 years. The moral that can be learned from this anime is that what may seem silly or stupid to us may be someone else's way of finding happiness. Everyone has their own unique perspective on the world, and the way they choose to live their lives should not be judged, but rather understood and respected.